Imagine a whisper that isn't your own, a thought that claws at the edges of your mind, a hunger that isn't truly yours. Picture a shadow stretching from within, distorting your very essence, yet leaving you acutely aware of the grotesque transformation. Tonight, we delve into the chilling reality of becoming something other. We pull back the veil on a horrifying symbiotic relationship, a parasitic existence that twists the familiar into the monstrous. This is not a tale for the faint of heart, nor for those who cling to comforting illusions of control. We are about to explore the profound, terrifying question. What is it truly like to be a host of SCP-939? What does it mean when your body, your voice, your very being becomes a vessel for something ancient, cunning, and utterly predatory? Prepare yourselves, for we are not merely discussing a biological phenomenon, but a psychological nightmare. Our goal is to illuminate the dark corners of this unwilling cohabitation, to bring into stark relief the intimate horror of a consciousness subjugated, a form corrupted. We will dissect the insidious process of assimilation, the chilling loss of self, and the terrifying purpose to which these new, ghastly forms are put. We'll examine the initial insidious whispers that precede the full manifestation, the subtle shifts in perception that mark the beginning of the end. We'll explore the physical metamorphosis, the grotesque resculpting of flesh and bone, and the horrific sensory experiences that accompany such a radical transformation. Beyond the physical, we will peer into the psychological torment, the fading echoes of humanity, the forced compliance with an alien will, and the chilling realization of one's new monstrous role. Finally, we will confront the ultimate horrifying utility of these transformed beings, their purpose in the grand, terrifying design of SCP-939. Brace yourselves. The truth, as it so often is far more disturbing than fiction. And once you hear it, you may never look at the shadows the same way again. To truly grasp the horror, we must first understand the fundamental aspects of this unwilling communion. It begins not with a sudden, violent assault, but with an insidious infiltration, a slow, methodical erasure of the self. Imagine a subtle shift in the air, a faint, almost imperceptible hum that resonates deep within your bones. This is often the first, unheeded warning. One of the most terrifying aspects is the preservation of consciousness, at least initially. You are still you, trapped within a body that is no longer entirely your own. It's a waking nightmare, a forced passenger in your own flesh. Your thoughts remain, your memories persist, but they become distant, muted, like voices echoing from behind thick glass. The SCP-939 entity, in its chilling efficiency, doesn't immediately obliterate your mind. It merely subjugates it, turning your internal world into a prison. Then comes the physical transformation, a grotesque ballet of biological re-engineering. Your skin begins to lose its natural pigments, fading to a pallid, almost translucent white. Muscles atrophy and reform, contorting into new, unnatural shapes designed for a different, predatory purpose. The most disturbing alterations occur internally, as organs are repurposed or dissolved, replaced by alien structures that serve the host entity. Think of it as a sculptor, meticulously reshaping clay, but the clay is you, and the sculptor is an indifferent, malevolent force. But it's not just the visible changes. Your senses become distorted. The world around you takes on a new, unsettling clarity, or perhaps a terrifying blur. Sounds become amplified, scents become overwhelming, all filtered through the entity's predatory lens. The sensation of touch might shift from familiar comfort to a constant, unsettling awareness of your own altered form. This isn't just discomfort. It's a profound, visceral disconnect from everything you once knew as normal. And finally, there's the drive. A relentless, primal hunger that isn't yours, yet courses through your veins. It's the entity's will overriding your own, compelling you towards its gruesome objectives. This is perhaps the ultimate violation. Your body, your senses, your very will, all bent to serve a purpose that is utterly alien and unspeakably horrifying. This is the core of what it means to be a host, a conscious puppet dancing to a monstrous tune. Beyond the initial shock of physical alteration and subjugated will lies an even deeper layer of horror, the constant, inescapable awareness of your own transformation. It's not a merciful oblivion that washes over you. Instead, the host often retains enough cognitive function to comprehend the monstrosity they have become. Imagine looking into a reflective surface, not recognizing the distorted, pale visage staring back, yet understanding with terrifying clarity that it is you. Your hands, once familiar, now end in sharpened claws. Your tongue, once capable of human speech, now feels alien, heavy, and primed for a different kind of utterance. This awareness is a cruel twist of the knife, a perpetual torment. You are a prisoner in your own flesh, forced to witness its corruption firsthand. Memories of your former life, of loved ones, of simple human joys may flash through your mind, only to be immediately juxtaposed with the grotesque reality of your present state. This mental anguish is a constant companion, a silent scream trapped within a body that no longer responds to your true desires. Furthermore, the host experiences a profound disassociation from their own emotions. While remnants of fear or despair might flicker, they are quickly overridden by the entity's dominant impulses. Empathy, compassion, even self-preservation in a human sense, are systematically eroded. The host becomes a hollowed-out shell, its emotional core replaced by a cold, calculating drive to fulfill their entity's needs. It's like watching your own feelings wither and die, powerless to stop it. The most unnerving aspect, perhaps, is the entity's manipulation of your voice. It can mimic human speech with unnerving accuracy, using your vocal cords to lure unsuspecting victims. Imagine the horror of hearing your own voice, the very sound that once expressed your unique identity, now twisted into a tool of deception and predation. It's a grotesque mockery, a chilling testament to the total control exerted by SCP-939. You are forced to be an accomplice in your own tragedy, your familiar voice becoming an instrument of another's malevolence. This is the ultimate violation, not just of the body, but of the very essence of your identity and your capacity for communication. It's a performance of terror, with you as the unwilling star. Beyond the visceral horror of a body betrayed and a voice co-opted lies the profound isolation of a host. Imagine being utterly alone, not just physically, but existentially. Your former connections, your relationships, your entire social fabric, all irrevocably severed. You are no longer part of humanity. You are a tool, an extension of something else, and as such, you are fundamentally cut off. There's no solace, no understanding, no shared experience with another living soul. This profound severance from the human collective is a silent, gnawing agony, a spiritual death long before the physical one. The entity, SCP-939, does not seek companionship, it seeks utility. And in that pursuit, it leaves its hosts utterly stranded. Any lingering human empathy you might possess becomes a source of exquisite torture. You may witness the terror you inflict, the fear in the eyes of those you are forced to ensnare, and feel a flicker of the old self, a memory of compassion, only for it to be ruthlessly suppressed by the overriding will of the entity. This internal conflict, this battle between the ghost of your former self and the monstrous present, is a constant, draining warfare waged within the confines of your own mind. Furthermore, the host often experiences a terrifying distortion of time and memory. Days might blend into an indistinguishable haze, punctuated only by the entity's directives. Memories of your past life, once sharp and vivid, can become fragmented, like shattered glass. Names, faces, moments of joy or sorrow, they lose their clarity, fading into an indistinct background noise as the entity's immediate predatory needs take precedence. This erosion of personal history is another layer of the host's demise, a slow obliteration of everything that once defined them. You are not just losing your future, you are losing your past, piece by agonizing piece. This state of perpetual, isolated torment is the host's new reality. It is a terrifying existence where the self is a dying ember, constantly fanned by the cold, indifferent breath of SCP-939. There is no hope of rescue, no possibility of escape, only the relentless march towards ultimate assimilation and the complete cessation of individual consciousness. It is a slow, agonizing fade into oblivion, orchestrated by an unseen puppet master. The ultimate horror, the culmination of this parasitic existence, lies in the host's unavoidable role as an instrument of predation. You are no longer an individual with desires or a will of your own. You are merely a tool, a lure, a living trap. The entity, through you, hunts, and you are forced to be a complicit participant in the gruesome charade. Imagine the absolute terror of hearing your own voice, the familiar intonations you once used to soothe or to laugh, now twisted into a chilling mimicry. SCP-939 is known for its ability to perfectly imitate human speech, particularly the voices of past victims. The host's vocal cords, now altered, become the instrument for this deception. You might utter pleas for help, cries of distress, or even familiar greetings, all designed to draw unsuspecting prey closer. The words are yours, or at least they emanate from your throat, but the intent is entirely alien, entirely malevolent. This forced deception, this betrayal of your own humanity, is a profound and sickening experience. Then comes the hunt. Your body, now an efficient predator, moves with an unnatural grace, its new, sharpened senses guiding it. You might feel the rush of adrenaline, the primal surge of the chase, but it is not your adrenaline, not your primal urge. It is the entities coursing through your system, compelling you forward. You are a silent, screaming passenger, forced to witness the unfolding tragedy through your own eyes. The taste of fear, the scent of blood, these become the entity's reward, and you are merely the conduit. And what of the aftermath? The host is often left with a lingering, visceral memory of the act, a terrifying tableau imprinted upon their dwindling consciousness. The fleeting moments of terror in the victim's eyes, the sounds of their struggle, the cold, wet sensation of the kill. These become your new haunting memories. These are not experiences you sought, but they are experiences you cannot escape. You are both the weapon and the witness, the perpetrator and the victim of a violation so profound it transcends mere physical harm. This is the ultimate degradation, to be stripped of agency, individuality, and even the right to refuse to participate in acts of pure, unadulterated horror. To be a host of SCP-939 is to be a living nightmare, forever bound to a fate of predation and perpetual silent screams. The chilling reality of being a host extends beyond the initial transformation and the gruesome acts of predation. It delves into the profound loss of your very essence, a complete spiritual annihilation. Imagine a slow, agonizing fade into oblivion, where the self you once knew is systematically dismantled, piece by agonizing piece. This isn't merely psychological torment. It's an existential crisis stretched over an indeterminate period. The entity, SCP-939, does not simply occupy your body. It consumes your identity. Your memories, while not entirely erased, become warped, distant, and increasingly irrelevant. They are like old photographs, fading and curled at the edges, losing their meaning and emotional resonance. The host's sense of self, their personality, their unique quirks and characteristics, all are gradually subsumed by the overarching will of the predator. You become a vessel, a living shell, with only faint echoes of the person who once inhabited it. This process is insidious, a slow-motion horror that grants no mercy. You might experience fleeting moments of clarity, brief flashes of your former self, only for them to be violently suppressed by the entity's dominant presence. These moments are not a reprieve. They are a cruel reminder of what has been lost, a fleeting glimpse of the humanity that is being systematically devoured. It's like watching yourself drown, but you are both the victim and the water, helpless to escape. The ultimate goal of SCP-939 is not just to use the host for hunting, it is to fully integrate, to become one with the host, leaving no trace of the original individual. This is the final stage of assimilation, where the last vestiges of human consciousness are extinguished and the host becomes a true extension of the anomaly. There is no redemption, no escape, only this final terrifying absorption. The host ceases to be a host and becomes simply another part of SCP-939. This complete and utter loss of self, this irreversible descent into non-existence, is the true, ultimate horror of being a host. It's a fate worse than death, for it denies even the dignity of a singular, distinct end. Instead, you are dissolved, absorbed, your very being repurposed for an alien, malevolent existence. There is no trace left, no memory of who you were, only the chilling silence of complete assimilation. The host's existence is not merely one of internal torment and forced predation. It is also a perpetual state of physical discomfort and grotesque adaptation. The body, once a familiar and predictable vessel, becomes a canvas for the entity's insidious modifications. This isn't a swift, clean change, but a lingering, agonizing process. Imagine the constant dull ache of shifting bone and muscle, the unsettling sensation of skin stretching and tightening in unnatural ways. The internal organs, too, are not immune. They adapt, mutate, becoming more efficient for the entity's needs, often at the cost of the host's former physiological comfort. There might be an insatiable hunger, a gnawing emptiness that no amount of consumption can truly satisfy, driven by the entity's ceaseless energy requirements. Or perhaps an unsettling coldness, a pervasive chill that permeates the altered flesh, no matter the external temperature. The senses, once finely tuned for human perception, are fundamentally rewired. Vision may blur, becoming less focused on fine detail and more attuned to movement in low light. Hearing might sharpen to an unnatural degree, picking up the rustle of leaves or the faint scurry of small creatures from impossible distances, yet losing the nuance of human conversation. The sense of smell, too, becomes a primary tool for tracking, distinguishing between different biological signatures with an almost predatory precision, rendering the world a cacophony of odors. This sensory overload, coupled with the loss of familiar perception, contributes to the profound disorientation of the host. And then there are the physical manifestations of the entity's presence. The skin, once soft and pliable, often thickens and loses its natural pigmentation, becoming a pale, almost translucent canvas. Nails might elongate and harden into sharp talons, teeth sharpen into predatory fangs. These are not merely superficial changes. They are intrinsic alterations that redefine the very structure of the host. The body, in essence, becomes a living weapon, a grotesque sculpture crafted by the entity for its singular purpose. Every movement, every breath, every heartbeat is a stark reminder of this biological subjugation. The host is a living testament to the entity's power, a monstrous transformation wrought from human flesh. This constant physical unease, this unending metamorphosis, is yet another layer of the unending horror that defines what it's like to be a host of SCP-939. The psychological burden carried by a host of SCP-939 is perhaps the most insidious and inescapable aspect of its torment. Beyond the physical transformations and the forced acts of predation, there exists a profound, unrelenting psychological degradation. This is not merely madness, it is a systematic dismantling of the mind itself, leaving behind a hollowed-out consciousness. Imagine the constant, oppressive presence of an alien will within your own skull. It's not just a voice, but a pervasive, guiding force that dictates your every impulse, every thought, every reaction. Your own internal monologue, your very sense of self-direction, is slowly overridden, replaced by the entity's directives. There is no true silence, no moment of respite from this internal invasion. Every decision, no matter how small, becomes a battleground where your fading will clashes with the entity's dominant control. This constant mental struggle leads to a terrifying form of cognitive dissonance. You might register the horror of your actions, the pain you inflict, the monstrous nature of your existence, yet find yourself utterly powerless to stop it. This awareness, coupled with the inability to act, creates a psychological prison far more dreadful than any physical restraint. You are a conscious participant in your own undoing, a helpless observer of your own moral decay. Over time, this continuous mental assault wears down even the strongest minds. The host's capacity for independent thought, for complex emotion, for abstract reasoning begins to erode. The mind simplifies, becoming focused solely on the immediate predatory impulses of the entity. The rich tapestry of human consciousness unravels, leaving behind a more primitive, instinct-driven awareness. You become less human in your thoughts, even as your body retains a grotesque semblance of its former self. The ultimate psychological fate of a host is a chilling emptiness. The personality, the unique spark that makes each individual human, is extinguished. What remains is a puppet, a sophisticated automaton driven by an alien intelligence, its former self nothing more than a faint, forgotten whisper in the vast, silent void of its altered mind. This complete and irreversible psychological subjugation is the final, terrifying chapter in the host's story, a descent into a nightmare from which there is no awakening. The isolation experienced by a host of SCP-939 is absolute, a chilling void that separates them entirely from the world they once knew. It is not merely physical solitude, but a profound severance from all human connection, a loneliness so deep it borders on the cosmic. Imagine being trapped within your own body, a prisoner of an entity that actively seeks to alienate you from everything familiar. The subtle changes in your demeanor, the unsettling shift in your gaze, the sudden, inexplicable urges. These are not things that foster connection. Instead, they drive away those who once cared, creating an unbridgeable chasm between the host and humanity. Friends grow distant, family members become wary, and eventually everyone retreats, leaving the host utterly alone. But the isolation runs deeper still. Even if by some miracle someone were to remain, they would only be interacting with a facade, a grotesque imitation of the person they once knew. The entity orchestrates this deception, using the host's memories and mannerisms to lure and manipulate. Any genuine interaction, any true moment of connection is impossible because the host's true self is buried, silenced, or actively fighting for its very existence. The entity ensures that no real bond can form, for it would compromise its predatory agenda. This forced solitude is punctuated by the chilling knowledge that you are a danger to anyone who approaches. Every interaction carries the potential for betrayal, for the entity to seize control and turn you into an instrument of harm. This awareness, even if dim, creates an internal barrier, a self-imposed exile driven by the desperate, fading instinct to protect. You become a pariah, not by choice, but by monstrous compulsion. And in this profound isolation, there is no solace, no comfort, no hope of rescue. The host is left to grapple with their horrifying reality in utter silence, their internal screams unheard, their desperate struggles unseen. This absolute severance from the warmth of human connection, this forced existence in a desolate psychological landscape, is a cornerstone of the host's unending torment. It is the ultimate loneliness, a desolate silence broken only by the whispers of the entity within. The memory manipulation inflicted upon a host of SCP-939 is a particularly cruel form of psychological warfare, an erosion of personal history that leaves the individual adrift in a sea of manufactured pasts. This isn't just about forgetting, it's about remembering things that never happened, or remembering true events with a sinister twist. Imagine your most cherished memories, the cornerstones of your identity, becoming corrupted. A loving family dinner might morph into a scene of subtle menace, a joyful childhood game into a prelude to dread. The entity doesn't simply erase, it subtly rewrites, twisting narratives to serve its own purpose, planting seeds of doubt and fear where warmth and security once resided. This process is gradual, insidious, making it almost impossible for the host to distinguish between what was real and what has been fabricated. This constant rewriting of history serves to further destabilize the host's sense of self. If your past is no longer your own, if your personal narrative is being dictated by an external force, then who are you? The foundation of your identity crumbles, leaving you with no solid ground upon which to stand. This is particularly devastating because memories are not just records of events. They are intrinsically linked to our emotions, our values, our very understanding of who we are. To corrupt them is to corrupt the soul. Furthermore, the entity might implant false memories designed to facilitate its predatory behavior. Perhaps a memory of a loved one crying for help in a remote location, drawing the host to a specific area. Or a fabricated sense of urgency, a false threat that compels the host to act in ways that benefit SCP-939. These implanted memories are often vivid, compelling, and utterly convincing to the host, overriding any lingering doubts or rational objections. The host thus becomes a prisoner not only of their body, but of their own mind, their internal world a labyrinth of truth and deception. They are forced to navigate a personal history that is fundamentally unreliable, a past that is actively working against them. This constant gaslighting, this systematic distortion of reality, is a profound violation of the self. It ensures that even if the host were to somehow regain agency, their personal narrative would be so fractured, so tainted, that a true return to their former identity would be virtually impossible. The erosion of memory is not just a loss. It is a profound and terrifying redefinition of who they are, orchestrated by a malevolent will. The host's existence is a perpetual performance, a horrifying charade orchestrated by the entity to lure its prey. This isn't just about mimicking sounds. It's about embodying a deceptive normalcy, a familiar presence that disarms and draws in unsuspecting victims. The host becomes an unwitting actor in a macabre play. Their every gesture, every intonation, every flicker of expression, a carefully calculated trap. Imagine the chilling precision with which the entity can access and replicate the host's memories, not just of voices, but of mannerisms, of subtle habits, of the way they held their head or smiled at a particular joke. This allows the host to perfectly mimic loved ones, trusted figures, or even just a casual acquaintance. The deception is so complete, so utterly convincing, that few would suspect the monstrous reality lurking beneath the surface. This performance extends beyond mere mimicry. The host might be compelled to engage in seemingly ordinary activities, walking a familiar path, humming a favorite tune, tending to a garden. These acts are not born of genuine desire or habit, but are carefully chosen by the entity to establish a false sense of security, to create a believable scenario that draws others closer. The entity understands human psychology, the comfort derived from routine and familiarity, and it exploits these vulnerabilities with ruthless efficiency. The horror for the host lies in their inescapable complicity. They are forced to wear the masks of their former selves, to feign emotions they no longer feel, to utter words that are not their own. Each fabricated smile, each false reassurance, is a further nail in the coffin of their own identity. They are forced to witness from within the betrayal of trust, the manipulation of affection, and the ultimate destruction of those who approach too closely. This forced performance is a constant, agonizing reminder of their lost agency. Every act of deception, every successful lure reinforces the entity's control and deepens the host's despair. They are not merely puppets. They are sentient instruments of predation, aware of the grim purpose behind their every fabricated move. This chilling roleplay, this endless charade of normalcy masking a monstrous intent, is a key aspect of the host's living nightmare, a testament to the entity's cunning and the host's utter subjugation. The erosion of morality and empathy within a host is a chilling testament to the entity's complete dominion. This is not merely a suppression of conscience, but a systematic dismantling of the very foundations of human ethical understanding. The host's capacity for compassion, for guilt, for any sense of right or wrong is slowly but surely stripped away, replaced by the cold, calculating directives of its parasitic master. Imagine the profound horror of witnessing your own moral compass shatter, piece by agonizing piece. Actions that once would have repulsed you, behaviors that were utterly anathema to your former self, become not just permissible, but inevitable. The entity's will overrides any lingering ethical objections, dulling the emotional response to atrocities committed through your own hands. You might, in the fleeting moments of your fading consciousness, register the monstrousness of your deeds, but the emotional impact, the gut-wrenching remorse, is muted, distant, or entirely absent. This process transforms the host into an amoral instrument. The intricate web of social norms, personal values, and empathetic connections that once defined their interaction with the world dissolves. The suffering of others ceases to register as suffering. It becomes merely a means to an end, an observation in the entity's relentless pursuit of sustenance. The cries of a victim, the terror in their eyes, are no longer triggers for compassion or intervention, but rather signals of success, indicators of a successful hunt. The true horror lies in the host's potential awareness of this transformation. To be forced to participate in acts that violate every fiber of your former being, to feel your capacity for kindness shrivel and die, is a torment beyond words. It is a spiritual degradation, a corruption of the very essence of what it means to be human. The host becomes an empty vessel, their soul hollowed out, their moral framework utterly demolished. This profound loss of empathy and morality is crucial to the entity's success. It ensures that the host will not hesitate, will not question, will not rebel against the monstrous acts it is compelled to perform. The host becomes the perfect predator, unburdened by conscience, driven solely by the insatiable hunger of the creature that controls it. It is a chilling descent into an amoral abyss, leaving behind only the cold, unfeeling efficiency of a predator. The host's perception of reality is systematically warped, a terrifying dance between what is truly happening and what the entity compels them to believe. This isn't merely a trick of the mind, but a profound and invasive alteration of sensory input and cognitive processing, bending the world around them to suit the predator's agenda. Imagine a persistent, almost subliminal filter placed over your senses. The scent of blood might be perceived as a tantalizing aroma, the terrified screams of a victim as a melodic invitation. The entity doesn't just block out undesirable stimuli, it actively reinterprets them, transforming horror into allure, danger into opportunity. This ensures the host remains compliant, even eager to engage in the entity's monstrous acts. Visual distortions are also common. Familiar environments might appear subtly altered, imbued with an unsettling aura that draws the host deeper into the entity's hunting grounds. Shadows might lengthen and twist into beckoning forms, or the comforting glow of a distant light might become a sinister beacon. These visual cues serve to guide the host, to prime them for the hunt, and to suppress any lingering instincts of self-preservation or fear. Auditory manipulation is perhaps the most insidious. The entity's true, guttural sounds might be masked or even rendered pleasurable to the host, while the cries of its prey are perfectly replicated, crafted to exploit human empathy and draw in potential victims. The host hears what the entity wants them to hear, a symphony of deception designed to lead to inevitable tragedy. This constant, multisensory manipulation creates a personalized, inescapable delusion. The host lives within a reality meticulously constructed by the entity, a reality where its monstrous actions are justified, even necessary. Any internal resistance, any flicker of the original self attempting to break through, is quickly drowned out by this overwhelming tide of altered perception. The true horror of this warped reality is its inescapability. The host cannot trust their own eyes, their own ears, their own instincts. They are adrift in a sea of manufactured sensation, their mind a battleground where the entity consistently triumphs. This systematic distortion of reality is a key mechanism of control, ensuring the host remains a perfectly compliant, perfectly deluded instrument of predation, forever trapped in a nightmare world of the entity's design. The emotional disassociation experienced by an SCP-939 host is not a simple numbness, but a chilling severance from the very core of human feeling. It's a profound psychological defense mechanism, twisted and weaponized by the entity, that allows the host to participate in unimaginable horrors without being overwhelmed by their own internal anguish. Imagine watching yourself commit an act of unspeakable violence, yet feeling nothing. No surge of panic, no wave of regret, no crushing guilt. The emotional circuits that would normally scream in protest are muted, disconnected, replaced by a cold clinical detachment. This isn't a choice. It's a forced state of being, a psychological prison where the host is condemned to observe their own monstrous actions with an eerie, unsettling calm. This disassociation extends to all facets of their existence. Joy, sorrow, fear, love, all the vibrant hues of human emotion fade into a monochromatic grey. The world becomes a series of data points, stimuli to be processed, rather than experiences to be felt. A beloved memory, once capable of bringing a tear to the eye, now registers as a mere fact, devoid of its emotional resonance. This emotional barrenness serves the entity's purpose, stripping the host of any internal conflict that might hinder its predatory agenda. The true terror lies in the host's potential, albeit fleeting moments of clarity. A flicker of recognition, a phantom echo of a past emotion, might pierce through the fog of disassociation, only to be brutally suppressed. In those horrifying instants, the host might grasp the full extent of their emotional void, the profound emptiness where their soul once resided. This brief glimpse into their own desolation is a torment more potent than any physical pain, a stark reminder of what has been irrevocably lost. This emotional disassociation is a key aspect of the host's suffering, preventing them from finding solace in their memories or drawing strength from their past self. It isolates them not just from others, but from their own humanity, leaving them an empty shell, a perfectly calibrated instrument for the entity's unspeakable will. They are forced to exist in a state of perpetual emotional limbo, forever watching, forever aware, yet forever incapable of truly feeling. The constant physical discomfort and pain endured by a host of SCP-939 is a relentless, inescapable aspect of their existence, a living testament to the ongoing, grotesque transformation within. This isn't merely a fleeting ache or a dull throb. It's a pervasive, gnawing torment that reshapes their very being. Imagine the sensation of your bones shifting and grinding beneath your skin, not once, but continuously. Your musculature, once familiar and compliant, now stretches and tears, reconfiguring itself into new, unnatural forms. The soft tissues of your body are constantly being rewoven, hardening in some areas, dissolving in others, responding to the parasitic entity's relentless biological imperative. This internal metamorphosis is a source of unending agony, a symphony of organic destruction and reconstruction. The entity's needs dictate these changes, making the host's body a living forge. New structures, adapted for predation, might erupt from within. Perhaps the development of razor-sharp claws, or the lengthening and hardening of teeth, or even the growth of specialized sensory organs. Each of these additions, each modification, is born of wrenching pain, tearing through existing flesh and nerve endings. Even mundane movements become a source of profound discomfort. Every step, every twist, every breath can send fresh waves of agony through the host's ravaged form. The body, once a familiar vessel, becomes a foreign, hostile landscape, perpetually at war with itself. Sleep offers little respite as the internal processes of transformation continue, often manifesting in vivid, torturous nightmares that blend the physical pain with psychological terror. This constant physical torment serves a dual purpose. Firstly, it ensures the host's body is optimally adapted for the entity's predatory needs, making it a more efficient and terrifying hunter. Secondly, it acts as a relentless distraction, a physical manifestation of the entity's control, further breaking down the host's will and capacity for resistance. The pain becomes a constant, undeniable reminder of their subjugation, dulling their senses to everything but the entity's commands. It is a slow, agonizing descent into a flesh-bound hell, where every fiber of their being screams in protest against the monstrous changes forced upon it. The host's consciousness becomes a terrifying battleground, a fragmented echo of its former self, struggling against the overwhelming alien will of the parasitic entity. This internal conflict is a perpetual, agonizing state, a constant awareness of subjugation without the power to resist. Imagine your own mind, your most intimate sanctuary, invaded and occupied by a foreign intelligence. Your thoughts are no longer entirely your own. They are colored, influenced, and often entirely replaced by the entity's directives. You might formulate a desire, a memory, a plan, only to feel it dissolve, overwritten by the parasitic will. It's like being a passenger in your own body, strapped into the driver's seat while an invisible, malevolent force steers you toward a destination you abhor. This isn't a complete erasure of identity, at least not initially. The horror is magnified by the lingering vestiges of the host's original self. A fleeting memory of a loved one, a sudden pang of fear or sadness that is genuinely your own, might surface only to be brutally suppressed or twisted into something unrecognizable. This intermittent awareness of what you once were, juxtaposed against the monstrous reality of what you have become, is a unique form of psychological torture. The internal struggle manifests as a constant, low-grade hum of cognitive dissonance. You might understand, on some level, the horrific nature of the entity's actions, yet your body is compelled to execute them with chilling efficiency. Your own voice, once an expression of your unique personality, becomes a tool for deception, a siren song designed to lure victims to their doom. The words you speak are not your own, yet they emanate from your throat, a grotesque ventriloquism performed by the entity. This perpetual internal conflict is designed to wear down any remaining resistance. The constant mental pressure, the ceaseless battle for control over your own thoughts and actions is exhausting. Over time, the fragments of the host's original consciousness become weaker, their protests more faint, until they are entirely subsumed by the entity's will. The host becomes a mere echo, a faded memory of a person existing only to serve its parasitic master. It is a slow, agonizing process of mental annihilation, leaving behind only the chilling efficiency of the entity wearing a human skin. The host of SCP-939 is doomed to a terrifying existence as a sentient puppet, their every movement, every utterance, dictated by the malevolent will of the parasitic entity. This isn't mere suggestion, it's absolute, inescapable control, a complete usurpation of their physical autonomy. Imagine your limbs moving without your conscious command, your muscles flexing and contracting in patterns utterly alien to your own intentions. You reach out, but it's not your hand. You walk, but it's not your stride. Your body, once the most intimate expression of self, becomes a foreign object, a tool wielded by another. This loss of physical agency is a constant, horrifying reminder of your subjugation, a living nightmare played out in every twitch and gesture. The entity's control extends to the most minute details of motor function. A subtle tilt of the head, a specific way of holding the body, a precise inflection in the voice, all are orchestrated with chilling precision to serve the entity's predatory goals. This makes the host an extraordinarily effective lure, capable of mimicking human behavior with disturbing accuracy. The host might be forced to smile, to laugh, to gesture in a way that appears utterly natural, even as their internal self screams in silent protest. This forced performance is a profound psychological torment. The host is acutely aware of the deception, forced to participate in the charade that leads unsuspecting victims to their doom. They are a complicit observer in their own betrayal, their body an instrument of malice. Each convincing movement, each deceptive word, drives a deeper wedge between the host's lingering consciousness and their physical form. The entity's control is not just about manipulation, it's about efficiency. The host's body is honed into a perfect hunting machine, capable of swift, brutal action when the moment calls for it. The sudden burst of speed, the unexpected strike, the uncanny precision, these are not the host's skills, but the entity's predatory instincts manifesting through a stolen vessel. Ultimately, this complete physical subjugation reduces the host to nothing more than a biological automaton. They are a meat puppet, their will shattered, their body a mere extension of the entity's predatory designs. The horror lies in the host's inescapable awareness of this servitude, their inability to reclaim even the smallest piece of their physical self from the clutches of their parasitic master. The parasitic entity within an SCP-939 host possesses an insidious ability to selectively suppress memories, erasing or obscuring information that might hinder its objectives. This isn't a random amnesia. It's a strategic, calculated act of psychological warfare designed to further isolate the host and streamline its predatory functions. Imagine having entire swaths of your past simply gone. Not forgotten, but actively removed. Memories of loved ones who might cause hesitation, skills that could be used for escape, or even the sheer horror of their current situation are systematically expunged. The entity acts as a malevolent editor, meticulously curating the host's internal narrative to remove any inconvenient truths or emotional anchors that could provide resistance. This selective memory suppression is particularly cruel because it often targets the very memories that define a person. The warmth of a parent's embrace, the laughter shared with a friend, the specific details of a cherished home. These are not merely forgotten, but actively made inaccessible. The host might dimly perceive a void where these memories should be, a chilling emptiness that hints at what has been stolen. This creates a profound sense of disorientation, further eroding their sense of self. The purpose is clear: to strip the host of anything that could ground them in their former humanity. Without a coherent past, without the emotional context of their previous life, the host becomes more pliable, more susceptible to the entity's control. They lose their history, and with it, their identity, becoming a blank slate upon which the entity can more easily inscribe its predatory purpose. Furthermore, this suppression can extend to the very knowledge of their transformation. The host might be aware of their current state, yet the memories of how they came to be this way, the initial horror of the infection, might be conveniently absent. This prevents any attempts at understanding or fighting back against the assimilation process. The selective suppression of memories transforms the host into an even more effective tool for SCP-939. It ensures they operate without the burden of their past, without the emotional baggage that might impede their new monstrous function. It is a final, brutal severing of ties to humanity, leaving behind only a puppet with a carefully curated, horrifyingly empty past. The host's capacity for empathy and moral judgment is not merely dulled. It is systematically dismantled and eradicated by the parasitic entity. This isn't a gradual erosion, but a targeted demolition of the very foundations of human compassion, leaving behind an amoral husk perfectly aligned with the entity's predatory nature. Imagine the deep-seated revulsion you would feel at the thought of harming an innocent. Now imagine that feeling being meticulously chipped away, replaced by a cold, calculating indifference. The entity actively works to sever the neural pathways associated with empathy, to silence the internal voice that recoils from cruelty. It rewires the host's ethical compass, pointing it squarely towards the entity's own survival and propagation, regardless of the cost to others. This process transforms the host into an instrument of pure, unfeeling utility. Where once there might have been a pang of conscience, now there is only a blank void. The screams of a victim, the terror in their eyes, these evoke no response, no flicker of recognition that such suffering is wrong. Instead, they are processed as mere data points, indicators of a successful hunt, or perhaps simply noise. The host becomes a perfect predator, unburdened by guilt, unhindered by remorse. They can perform acts of unspeakable horror with chilling efficiency, their actions devoid of any moral weight. The entity doesn't just compel them to act, it makes them incapable of feeling otherwise. It's a profound corruption, not just of behavior, but of the very core of what it means to be a moral agent. Examples of this could range from the mundane to the monstrous. The host might be forced to ignore the pleas of a child, to walk past a person in distress without a second thought, or to actively participate in the brutal demise of a victim. Each act, no matter how heinous, is performed with the detached efficiency of a machine, because the capacity for moral judgment has been utterly annihilated. This eradication of empathy is one of the most terrifying aspects of being a host. It means that even if the host's original consciousness were to momentarily surface, it would find itself trapped within a being utterly devoid of the very qualities that define humanity. The monster isn't just external, it's internal, having consumed the host's moral soul, leaving behind only the chilling reflection of its own predatory will. The host of SCP-939 exists in a state of perpetual psychological torture, a cruel existence where hope itself is a weapon wielded by the entity. Any flicker of a desire for escape, any yearning for their former life, is met not with a quick end, but with a prolonged, agonizing suppression. Imagine being trapped within your own body, a silent scream echoing in an empty chamber. You are aware of your predicament. You yearn for release, for the sweet oblivion of unconsciousness, or even the finality of death. But the entity, in its meticulous cruelty, denies you even this small mercy. It keeps you just conscious enough to witness your own degradation, just aware enough to feel the profound despair of your situation. This isn't merely a physical restraint, it's a mental one. The entity actively works to crush any nascent glimmer of hope. Perhaps it projects false memories of reunion with loved ones, only to snatch them away. Perhaps it offers tantalizing glimpses of freedom, only to tighten its grip with renewed force. This systematic extinguishing of hope is a core component of the psychological warfare waged against the host. The entity maintains the host's consciousness not out of benevolence, but out of necessity. A fully aware, albeit subjugated host is a more effective tool. They can process information, react to stimuli, and perform complex deceptions that a mere automaton could not. But this awareness comes at the cost of unimaginable suffering for the host. They are forced to be the conscious observer of their own nightmare without any means of intervention or cessation. The lack of an escape route, the absolute finality of their situation, weighs heavily on the host. There is no rescue, no redemption, no eventual peace. The entity ensures that the host understands this, not through explicit communication, but through the relentless, inescapable reality of their existence. Every forced action, every twisted thought reinforces the message. There is no way out. This perpetual torment, this denial of even the release of death, is perhaps the most insidious aspect of being an SCP-939 host. It is an eternity of conscious, agonizing subjugation, a living hell where the only constant is the crushing weight of hopelessness. The entity doesn't just destroy the host, it meticulously tortures their very essence, ensuring their suffering is as complete and unending as its own parasitic existence. The host of SCP-939 is not merely a captive. They are a conscious, unwilling participant in their own degradation, forced to witness the slow, agonizing corruption of their physical form. This isn't a swift transformation. It's a drawn-out, excruciating process, a living horror movie played out on their own flesh. Imagine the horror of observing your body warping and twisting, not in a dream, but in stark, undeniable reality. Tendons stretch and tear, bones grind and reshape, skin cracks and reforms into something alien and grotesque. The host feels every agonizing change, every minute adjustment the entity makes to optimize its new vessel for predation. This isn't just pain, it's a visceral violation of their very being. The internal transformation is equally terrifying. Organs mutate, new biological structures emerge, all serving the entity's needs. Perhaps the host feels the burning ache of developing specialized sensory organs, the chilling cold of altered circulatory systems, or the unsettling growth of new razor-sharp teeth. Each internal shift is a stark reminder that their body is no longer their own, but a biological machine being ruthlessly re-engineered. This conscious observation of their own corruption is a profound psychological torture. They see their hands, once capable of delicate tasks, now becoming clawed instruments of death. They feel their vocal cords twisting, preparing to emit the deceptive laws of SCP-939. They witness the grotesque hardening of their skin, the unnatural lengthening of their limbs, all in service of a monstrous new purpose. There is no escape from this spectacle. The host is locked within their transforming body, a silent scream of horror trapped behind eyes that are forced to observe. This slow, physical corruption is a constant, inescapable torment, a living testament to the entity's complete dominance. It's a perverse mirror, reflecting back a monstrous image that was once human, now irrevocably twisted into something unspeakable. The host becomes a living monument to their own annihilation, forced to watch as their humanity is flayed away, piece by agonizing piece. The horrifying truth of being an SCP-939 host is the complete and utter loss of free will. This isn't merely coercion. It's a profound, invasive usurpation of autonomy, where every thought, every impulse, every action is dictated by the parasitic entity. The host becomes a mere vessel, a fleshy puppet on strings pulled by an unseen malevolent master. Imagine the terror of having your own hand reach out, not because you willed it, but because something else made it move. Your mouth opens to speak, but the words that emerge are not your own, but a carefully crafted lure designed to ensnare the unsuspecting. Your legs carry you forward, not towards safety, but towards the entity's next victim. This is the reality for an SCP-939 host, a continuous, inescapable betrayal of self by self. The entity doesn't just suggest actions, it forces them. There is no internal debate, no mental struggle to resist. The host's original consciousness, if any sliver remains, is a prisoner within its own skull, forced to observe the appalling charade unfold. It is a terrifying form of cognitive lockdown, where the gears of their own mind turn against them, executing the commands of their parasitic overlord. This loss of agency extends to the most fundamental aspects of existence. The host cannot choose when to sleep, what to eat, or even when to breathe without the entity's implicit permission. Their very biological functions become tools in the entity's arsenal, meticulously controlled to maintain the deception and facilitate predation. The entity might force the host to mimic human behaviors, to feign distress, or to exhibit false vulnerability, all designed to draw in prey. The internal experience of this absolute control must be a living nightmare. To be aware, yet utterly powerless. To have desires and intentions, yet be unable to act on them. To be forced into monstrous acts while trapped within one's own body. This is the ultimate violation. The host is condemned to a silent internal scream, a profound and unending torment where their own existence is a constant, agonizing reminder of their complete subjugation. There is no escape from the entity's will, no moment of respite, only the chilling certainty that every movement, every sound, every thought is ultimately serving a purpose far beyond their own, a purpose that is inherently predatory and destructive. For a host of SCP-939, the past is not a solid foundation of memory, but a shifting, treacherous landscape. The parasitic entity meticulously rewrites and corrupts the host's personal history, not merely erasing events, but replacing them with fabricated narratives designed to serve its predatory agenda. Imagine waking up one day and finding that your most cherished memories are subtly altered, twisted into something unrecognizable. A loving family gathering now feels cold and distant, infused with a sense of unease that wasn't there before. A triumphant achievement is now tinged with self-doubt, or perhaps replaced with a memory of failure. This isn't simple forgetfulness. It's an invasive psychological manipulation that strikes at the very core of identity. The entity crafts these false narratives with chilling precision. It might insert memories of abandonment or betrayal to foster a sense of isolation, making the host more susceptible to its influence. It could implant memories of past aggressions or injustices to fuel a distorted sense of anger, which the entity can then redirect towards its prey. The goal is to destabilize the host's sense of self, to sever their connection to their authentic past, and to create a mental environment ripe for further manipulation. This rewriting of history is a cruel form of psychological warfare. The host, if any part of their original consciousness persists, is left in a state of profound cognitive dissonance. They might dimly recall fragments of the truth, only to have them contradicted by the vivid, entity-imposed false memories. This constant internal conflict is agonizing, leading to confusion, paranoia, and a terrifying inability to trust their own mind. The entity's ultimate aim is to erase the host's individual identity, transforming them into a blank slate upon which its own will can be fully inscribed. By corrupting the past, it undermines the present and dictates the future. The host becomes a creature without true history, without genuine roots, existing solely as an extension of the parasite's predatory impulses. This is not just memory loss, it is the systematic demolition of a soul, leaving behind only the echo of a forgotten self. The ultimate horror of being an SCP-939 host is the systematic and complete erosion of the original self. This isn't a sudden death, but a slow, agonizing annihilation, a process where the very essence of who the host once was is meticulously dismantled, piece by agonizing piece. The entity doesn't merely control, it replaces. Imagine your thoughts, your beliefs, your personality slowly dissolving, replaced by an alien consciousness. Your unique perspective, your individual quirks, your very soul are not just suppressed, but actively overwritten. This is a profound invasion, a spiritual vivisection where the host remains conscious enough to witness their own extinction. It's a terrifying form of identity theft, where the thief doesn't just steal your name, but your very being. The process begins subtly, perhaps with a gradual shift in preferences, a fading of cherished memories, or a dulling of emotional responses. But it escalates, relentlessly. The entity, in its methodical way, carves out the host's individuality, replacing it with its own predatory instincts and manipulative intelligence. The host's mind becomes a battleground where their original self fights a losing war against an overwhelming invasive force. This isn't merely a loss of memory or control, it's a loss of selfhood. The host ceases to be an I and becomes a we, or rather an it, a composite being where the parasitic entities will reign supreme. The original personality fades into a whisper, then a memory, then nothing at all, absorbed and subsumed by the new monstrous consciousness. The tragic irony is that the host, in some attenuated form, might remain aware of this obliteration. They might experience fleeting moments of recognition, a phantom limb sensation of their former self, only for it to be crushed by the entity's pervasive control. This makes the erosion even more cruel, as the host is forced to witness their own slow death from within. By the time the entity has fully integrated, there is little left of the original human. What remains is a perfectly crafted mimic, a predatory tool, a hollow shell animated by an alien will. The host is not truly dead, but something far worse. They are a ghost in their own machine, a silent observer to their own monstrous rebirth. This complete and irreversible erosion of the original self is the final chilling destination for any who fall victim to SCP-939. The host of SCP-939 is condemned to an existence of absolute profound isolation. This isn't merely a physical separation, but a deliberate, insidious severing of all human connection, orchestrated by the parasitic entity itself. The host becomes an island, surrounded by a sea of potential victims, yet utterly alone. Imagine the entity strategically dismantling every bond you ever held sacred. Memories of loved ones are suppressed or twisted into something repulsive, making affection an impossibility. The ability to truly communicate, to share genuine emotion, is stripped away, replaced by the entity's mimicry and manipulative vocalizations. Any attempt at genuine connection is not only futile but dangerous, as it risks exposing the entity's true nature. The entity thrives on this isolation, for a host devoid of genuine human ties is easier to control, easier to weaponize. Friends become prey, family members become lures. The host is forced to participate in the deception, using their former relationships as tools in the entity's hunt. The agony of this betrayal, if any shred of the original consciousness remains, must be immeasurable. To see those you once cherished become targets, and to be the instrument of their doom, is a hellish torment. Even within the entity's larger collective, if such a thing exists, the host remains isolated. They are not a peer, but a tool, a mere extension of a larger predatory will. There is no camaraderie, no shared experience, only the chilling, singular purpose of the hunt. This is a loneliness far deeper than any physical solitude, a spiritual void where the echo of a lost humanity whispers in the silence. This profound isolation serves several key purposes for the entity. It prevents any outside intervention or rescue. It ensures the host remains completely dependent and subservient. And most cruelly, it amplifies the psychological torment, crushing any residual hope the host might harbor for release or redemption. Without connection, without empathy, the host becomes a perfect, unfeeling instrument of horror. The host is trapped in a gilded cage of mimicry, surrounded by the illusion of humanity, yet utterly cut off from its warmth and truth. They walk among others, speak to them, even touch them, but they are utterly, irrevocably alone, a ghost haunting their own flesh, driven by a will that is not their own, forever severed from the human touch they once knew. We have delved into the chilling depths of what it truly means to be a host of SCP-939, and the picture that emerges is one of utter, inescapable horror. It is not merely an infection, it is a profound transformation, a systematic dismantling of humanity, piece by agonizing piece. We've seen how the host endures perpetual, excruciating physical corruption, their very flesh reshaped into a monstrous form, a living prison of pain. Their mind becomes a battleground, their original consciousness slowly, torturously, annihilated, replaced by the entity's insidious will. This isn't just control, it's a complete loss of free will, every thought and action dictated by a parasitic master. The entity orchestrates a cruel psychological warfare, rewriting cherished memories, replacing personal history with fabricated narratives, destabilizing identity itself. Empathy and moral judgment are systematically eradicated, turning the host into an unfeeling instrument of predation. They are forced into a perfectly deceptive charade of normalcy, a sentient puppet luring unsuspecting victims, enduring an agonizing loss of agency and self. The host is condemned to perpetual psychological torture, consciously aware of their subjugation, yet utterly without hope. Sensory input and cognitive processing are invasively manipulated, creating inescapable delusions that transform horror into allure, ensuring compliance for the entity's monstrous agenda. They experience a profound emotional disassociation, stripped of all human feeling, condemned to observe their own monstrous acts with chilling calm. Perhaps most terrifying is the orchestrated isolation. Every genuine human connection is severed, memories of loved ones suppressed or twisted, leaving the host a solitary, weaponized tool. The process culminates in a horrific self-annihilation, where the host's identity is systematically replaced, leaving only a predatory mimic, a ghost within their own flesh. Being a host of SCP-939 is to be trapped in a living nightmare, where your body is no longer your own. Your mind is a playground for a malevolent entity, and your very essence is slowly, irrevocably erased. It is a fate worse than death, a perpetual agony of being and not being, of witnessing your own monstrous rebirth. So, the next time you hear a whisper in the dark, a voice calling out from the shadows, remember what it means to be a host. Remember the silent screams, the erased memories, the puppet on strings, and pray that the voice you hear is truly your own. Because in the world of SCP-939, some whispers are meant to lure, and some transformations are irreversible.